Perfect.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, hi there. Hi. Our speakers and panelists are here. Let me just make a quick introduction. Hi, welcome to the Global Metaverse Carnival 2022. I'm Loretta Chen. I am the co-founder and CEO of Smallbus Studios. We are the first investee studio of the Sandbox. It's headquartered in Singapore, and we've brought along experiences like DBS, the Food Bank. We also onboarded Nima, Son, and Figo into the Metaverse. So super exciting times. But enough about me. We are here today to discuss the next evolution of Web3 and the Metaverse. And to do so, we have a bunch of really esteemed panelists. And for full disclosure, it's 3 a.m. for me here in Miami. So we'll need our panelists today to do all the heavy lifting. So let me just introduce them in tow. We have the CEO of Virtua, who is Jawad Ashraf. I'm going to just wave to everybody. Hi. Let me just read out a little bio. Jawad is a technical specialist. He's an entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in strategic planning, process engineering, project leadership, business development, with a keen mobile AR, VR blockchain focus. He has also worked in insurance, reinsurance, energy trading, risk management, and SaaS cloud-based systems, as well as mobile applications. He has also managed and built projects in the UAE, and he's now based in Dubai, in USA, Turkey, Australia, Norway, and the UK. So welcome, Jawad.
Hey, how's it going?
Yay. Yeah, we were both lost just now in another metaverse.
We were like in another metaverse.
I know, it's good to find you. So we also have another CEO, Rommel Carlos of Arcus. Hi, Rommel. Good to see you. And Rommel is an experienced CEO with a demonstrated history of working in IT and services industry, innovation development, business operations, big data, Splunk, data analysis. He's got strong business development professional, and he has a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science focus in IT from System Technology Institute. Welcome, Rommel. Where does this find you?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm here currently in the Philippines, so 4 p.m. our time. So
very decent time. So yeah, you do all the heavy lifting. I'll just ask you all the difficult questions. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have founder and managing director Musheer Ahmed, who is from FinStep Asia, a very distinguished bio. Musheer is in the financial markets. He's an assurance advisor at Virtual Assets Regulatory Authority, better known as VARA, obviously. And I imagine you're based in Dubai, right, Musheer? Yeah, are you based in Dubai right now?
Nice.
Are you there right now? Are you in Dubai right now?
I am in Dubai right now.
Okay, of course.
And a quick disclaimer as such, in the sense that all my comments and views are strictly my own personal views, not of my current employers or previous employers.
Thank you for that, and we've recorded that, so we'll make sure of that. He was also the former managing director of FinStep Asia, and in the last 7 years, he's worked closely with several regulators, government bodies on fintech, digital assets, digital economy policy, providing advisory, research work, and delivering workshops on various topics. Musheer has also found time, in spite of his busy schedule, to contribute to building the fintech ecosystem in Hong Kong, and sits on several advisory boards. He's also a mentor advisor to several startups, as well as co-founder of India Tech HK, a platform bridging Indian and Hong Kong SAR startup ecosystem. Welcome, Musheer. And last but certainly not least, we have co-founder of APAC DAO, Nicole Nguyen. Hey, Nicole, where does this find you?
Hi, Loretta. Hi, everyone. Very nice to see a lot of familiar faces here. I'm tuning in from Bangkok. Yes.
Oh, you're tuning from Bangkok? Great. I'm so glad to be acquainted with you for the first time. So Nicole is currently the co-founder of APAC DAO, a Web3 committee centered around Asia Pacific, and she's the ASEAN Vice Chair of Global Impact FinTech, or GIFT. It's a think tank. She's been a key organizer behind a series of community outreach initiatives in Vietnam, APAC, including the first Vietnam Blockathon, the first mass-scale conference in Vietnam Blockchain Week for over 2,500 audience, as well as Enigma, a blockchain business contest. She now co-hosts the Unblock event series in Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and also co-author of the first Vietnam Blockchain Landscape Report and upcoming reports for Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines. And she was the former head of APAC for Asia Blockchain Blockchain Review and Infinity Blockchain Ventures. So again, welcome to all our panelists. Super excited to have you. I'm super excited because I know I can count on all of you to do all the heavy lifting today. So let's get started. Our panel discussion is on the next evolution of Web3 and the Metaverse. So maybe I'll just by starting, I'll just toss it out to anybody, and then just feel free to jump in. But maybe my first question to all of you is, how will Web3 impact the future of work? Anyone wants to take that on? How will Web3 impact the future of work? Or what do you think is the next evolution of Web3, the future of work?
Well,
Yeah, Jawad. Yes, please.
Okay, so basically, look, you've got various layers to Web3. So you've got like the technology components that are going to be disruptive in various industries. So you've got all the fintech stuff, you've got all the you've got gamified stuff that's going to impact it. So this is the way that you use it. It's a utility around with Web3. But then the other part, which is the future of work, is going to be the metaverse itself, and it's how you're going to participate and be present in work environments as well, and the social layer. So I think Web3, you're going to see, we all know around the table that there's going to be so much disruption happening. That's sort of happening in baby steps now across everything in finance and everything, supply chain. There's so much that will happen. And that will touch every industry, a bit like when we moved from physical to digital. Everything was disrupted. Pre-PC, it was all on paper, and now it's all digital. But it's going to be the evolution of that in a decentralized way. But the metaverse part is really important because it's how are you going to be present in the office? Are you going to be an avatar? Are you going to be in social spaces? How is your networking relationships going to happen? How will your meetings happen? So I think there are two core pillars to the way things will change in Web3 and the way it's going to influence. It's earth-shaking, I think. That's what will happen. But anyone else, what's your opinions?
Yeah, anyone? Rommel? What's the evolution of Web3 and how does it impact work, Rommel?
Yeah, so actually, for me, right now, our evolution, right? We are still in the early stage, right, of the Web3, and there's a lot of still of experiment. We're still on the experimental stage, and what we can really do on the metaverse and let's take one example, industry of the GameFi. One of the last year it opened our eyes on the GameFi industry, wherein we can take ownership of our asset when it comes to GameFi industry. But the real questions on how it's gonna impact us right now, for me as a gamer also, is if this is my professional work, how it's gonna impact me? How am I gonna remove those third party, some other agency that cutting some of my profit from me as a professional gamer? And I think that's how our Web3 will actually help me directly working, cutting down the middleman, but we're still gonna ask ourselves as a builder now, how we gonna create a sustainable ecosystem for our community, and that how we gonna maintain the liquidity because right now there's really no perfect tokenomics being built right now, and it still boils down to the question of how we gonna sustain the overall economics of our blockchain system by not really diluting the overall economics. And going back to that work, just one industry is still revolutionary, and we need really good builders that have really good vision that can disrupt the disruptive of Web3 technology. So right now it's really more on the experimental stage, and I would say that we really have a good future for the Web3, but let's all help each other to build this good ecosystem that everyone will benefit, and not just for some selective few people that manipulates the system.
Yeah, great points. And in fact, I do want to come back to a question that you raised earlier, but before you raised two really good questions that I want to raise to the panelists. But before that, maybe Nicole, you want to offer your point of view? Like, what do you think is the evolution of Web3 and how is it going to impact the future of work or any aspect of life, really?
So I think the question around the future work is very exciting because I think, of course, first, of course, it deals with the business, and secondly, it deals with the people, right? Because we are talking about the shifting of talents, how we are changing our, I think our habits, of course, also our behaviors these days with Metaverse and Web3. But personally, I think the most interesting or fascinating, I think, model with that comes with Web3 is about everyone can set up their own economies right now. I think this point has been stressed quite a lot in a lot of, by a lot of the speakers, especially Yatsu from Animoca. And he also mentioned that, of course, the most powerful tool with Metaverse and Web3 is that basically you can form a lot of these microeconomies. You can even set your own kind of governance. You can even come up with your own like currencies. You can actually work out on the incentives for the people. Of course, you can actually, kind of have the ownership of the assets that you can generate within your ecosystem. Basically, this is not dependent upon any centralized parties to tell you which one is right and which one is not. And of course, you don't have to stand the risk of your assets being revoked. Let's say if you have to rely on a third party. So I think pretty much this is a very powerful kind of concept. I mean, even for now, we're talking about builders, as Rommel mentioned. We talk about creators who can actually, create their own economies. And this actually, I think it's very powerful, especially against the setting of Asia Pacific, where we also have a lot of these like small and medium businesses, and also a very strong kind of creators culture. And so I think that this is definitely something that we very much look forward to. So a lot of the other innovations around, I think the DAO or Metaverse, etc. Basically, it drills down to what you can do actually as an individual or also as a community individual, with Web3 and Metaverse. There are many other concepts, but I think that's the most fascinating for me so far.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, I want to come back to some questions that you raised there, Nicole. But I think we lost our other panelists for a while. So maybe I'll come back to a question that you raised, Rommel. Like, how do we build the system then? Because you're saying that currently there are some bad players, and liquidity has been taken out of the system, right? I mean, obviously, case in point, FTX, etc. Some of these bad players. How then do we rebuild? How do we begin to sort of future trust again after something like this?
So in removing the stigma from our to get a mass adoption from our community, so how can we remove that stigma to these people is really creating a good product. Like, for example, let's take it, I'll focus on the GameFi, right? Or in a GameFi, if we're gonna build the game, let's not forget about why game was being created. This is for us to have fun, to go back to really remove our stress from the reality, and be something that we can collaborate in a virtual world to our friends, and to be friends globally. So let's create that first, create that good product and services, right? And then second, let's not forget about the fundamental how Web2 created a good company, a strong company. And let's take that business model that they're being created, their financial structure. Let's apply that to the Web3 in order to create this sustainable product. And the third one, I think it's really, since we are driven by the community also, I think this is the time to really maximize how the decentralized exchange works, and really use it more often, instead of going to right now the trust that we have really in the centralized exchange really become low because of the recent issues. And that's how we're gonna bring back the trust of other community that actually lost a lot when it comes to cryptocurrency. Focusing on that, for me, I think that will help us to really get more mass adoption to the community, and really focus on something what the community deserve. After all, our crypto is $1 billion industry. We reached to the point of the trillion, right? So let's create a good product and build more utility use cases out of it. And that's for me. That's how I can see how we gonna improve more in the Web3 space.
Yeah, good points. What about any thoughts then, Nicole, especially in the work that you do with DAOs? I mean, have some of your committees been like severely impacted, and how have you tried to reassure them, or yeah, any observations from your vantage point?
Yeah, I think Musheer is also asking to be back on the stage. So if
Oh,
if the organizing team can help him.
that'd be
So I
great.
think back to so I think we're like coming back to a very interesting concept of DAO. To be honest, I mean APAC DAO, we didn't start as a DAO in the beginning. So we started as a community of people who share like kind of similar interest in connecting with other Web3 players. And we are mostly in APAC, and after COVID, we also found it very I think very critical to, of course, like to get a chance to know other players and explore the landscape, especially after COVID with Web3. And eventually we were thinking that, so for now we've reached to a stage where we have like 1,500 members from 10 countries, mostly Web3 founders and VCs, community builders across APAC. So we're thinking that based on this kind of network, so actually it started with trust first. And there we're thinking of having some way to decentralize this trust by, of course, opening up to more people. And we can build up some initiatives on it. We still have the meetups and networking activities, but we're also thinking of a decentralized launchpad that's going to be built upon this trusted network. So once we have like a core team or a core network based on trust, we are going to work around the governance, the constitution of the DAO to make sure that, whenever there's any new player that comes in, basically we can, of course, maintain this integrity, also the power of this DAO as a community, intact, thanks to the governance and the supervision of the whole community as a whole. So I think basically, I mean, the DAO is not for everyone or not for all business. I believe that it's also very challenging to build the trust, among people, especially after the fallout of the market recently. But I think what we witnessed recently is that, of course, a lot of the decentralized protocols are the first benefactor of that kind of fallout. So people are moving from centralized exchanges to decentralized exchanges. They're also going for non-custodial wallets. And of course, like other kind of tools that require you to be the owner, the ultimate owner of your assets. So I mean, definitely, I would say that this is something that inevitable, like these kind of market fallouts where trust was, I think, was kind of battered among all of these players. But I think it's a necessary step for us to kind of shift our mindset from the centralized world to a decentralized world. I'm not like a decentralization maximalist, but I believe that basically there's a lot of loopholes with the current systems that if you kind of shift your mindset to a more kind of community-based, also decentralized kind of way of thinking, basically there are a lot of opportunities that can open, and you can also like think about different ways to incentivize people to have more trust to build business. So DAO is one thing, but of course, like everyone's feel free to welcome to kind of leverage your own network, your community to come up with other ideas.
Yeah, well said. And I think so, Musheer. While we lost you for a while, I think I was asking our panelists on, how do we rebuild trust in this climate? But maybe I'll pose the two gentlemen, Jawad and Musheer, a slightly different question following what Nicole has just said. So, how? Because Nicole did also say about trying to involve the community. It was also something that Rommel shared as well. So maybe to both gentlemen, Musheer and then Jawad. Well, how will and how can the community play a part in this, especially in such a bear market? How do you think the community, what can they do, for sure?
I think the key element when you're looking at a bear market or otherwise is, as Nicole mentioned, trust is a major factor, right? So when you're trying to build trust, transparency becomes very important, and verifiability, right? The whole element of blockchain being the fact that you could verify something and then have that trust, because it's a trustless system, was an important element of the evolution of the ideology, right? And I think that's one thing that we need to get back to, is how can you verify and validate any information that's done, any actors that are done, right? The FTX collapse is a classic example of, again, trust there, right? That everybody trusted what was being done. And so building the trust is going to be critical, but verification and transparency becomes the next part, right? When you look at self-regulation, you also need to, there are two elements to it, or two plays. One being when you're looking at a fully decentralized ecosystem, then it becomes a question of ownership and shared responsibility, right? So you do need a way where the bad actors can be acted upon, or I'm not going to say punished, but I'm just saying there should be repercussions for any bad actors, and there should be rewards for those who can highlight the bad actors, right, appropriately. Right? So that becomes important to try to build that story up. Second is quite often in certain circumstances, people push back against governance, governments, authorities, regulators, etc. Right? And there are multiple reasons why they do that, but we also have to find the right balance. The reality is a lot of what's done on Web3 can and may be regulated, right? Some of it already is regulated as a possibility whenever it has to do with financial services that the regulators will kick in. But in the bear market, there have been significant number of people and investors and users who have been hurt, not necessarily financially, but otherwise as well, right? Because
Sure, sure.
do you have the trust in, when you buy an NFT and you think this is the next big thing, you figure out it's a fraud because the validation was not done by the platform and it was just a JPEG, as an example, right? So not only about the money, but your trust in the system becomes important. So collaborating with regulators in a way that this can be feasible and finding the right balance. Not all things need to be regulated in all
Yeah.
circumstances, but being able to collaborate and be transparent what you do and making sure that the authorities are comfortable, right? This is not to say you need to be just be getting everything regulated. It just means that those who can provide investor protection are, and their duty is to provide investor protection and consumer protection, are comfortable with what's happening in Web3. And there are a lot of self-regulated organizations in today's world, outside of the financial services world, outside of
Right.
regulated world, right? And can we build such things where the trust can be there, both internally in the groups that operate in Web3, but also outside in, because if everybody thinks that this is largely scam, this is not legal or illicit activities are taking place, no matter how much clean the activity is, will always be a shadow upon it. So being that transparency is going to be key. Thank you.
Yeah. So Jawad, what do you think? I think now it's posing all these questions on what can the community do in this climate, but also I think Musheer brought up a point about regulation as well. So I just want to hear your thoughts on both. Is it going to be more the onus of say regulation or community? I mean, obviously we'll say a little bit of both, but I just want to hear your thoughts on what
Yeah,
is
I
the role
mean,
of
look,
community, what's the role of governance.
I think everyone's like covered the key points here. It's going to be a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Regulation ultimately is going to be very important, or the mainstream will never come to our way. We can't change the entire world's thinking. Right now, crypto is this, and this is the mass market. And if the approach that we take is we're going to educate you on a whole decentralized approach to life, let's wait 30 years. So there's got to be something in the middle, which has got to provide trust in a meaningful way that can evolve into something which actually then works better for everybody. And like like Musheer's, even like I'm aware of what VAR are doing, in that they're trying to create a regulated framework for crypto and blockchain companies, but in a way which isn't onerous. But I think a lot of what's going to happen is that then, just as a blockchain allows us to have trust without knowing the details,
Yeah.
trust the transactions. I think there needs to be something along the same way for DAOs and organizations who can trust the decision making
Yes.
behind organizations in a similar decentralized way. It's almost like decentralized verification of business processes needs to be something that needs to come in as a layer. Because right now, if you've got centralized company, you can have bad actors. If you've got a DAO, it can end up becoming very cliquey and end up being its own thing. I mean, you've seen it with multiple DAOs. And just because it's a DAO doesn't mean they can't collectively make bad decisions. Like that time when somebody bought a copy of Dune, I think for how many millions of dollars, thinking they could make NFTs from it. The DAO voted on it, and then realized after they bought it, they had no IP rights to it at all. They just spent $3 million on a book they could do. So it's like there needs to be a middle ground. And in my mind, it's like the solution is going to be something which is about providing almost like a decentralized collection of DAOs and individuals who can work on a trusted basis who will actually be incentivized, just like miners get incentivized to go ahead and confirm a blockchain transaction.
Yeah.
They get incentivized to make sure that these things happen
Yeah.
in various industries the way they should do. And that does make it trustless again, right? Because people are rewarded, just like Musheer is talking about, for reporting bad actors, but it can be also rewarded for verification of processes. I think there's a step we're missing. I think we got bits. Regulation is trying to do some stuff. DAOs are trying to do some stuff. I think there's something else to the hybrid which will evolve into this space to deal with this.
Yeah.
These things like FTX is just, I've spoken to so many projects that literally had their entire, I mean, you know, like you're talking about like GameFi and you're publishing. Imagine if all your funds were sitting in FTX because you were asked to do that by your investors, and the next day you have no runway. So it's affected all of us, and not just it's not just the consumers. It's affected multiple companies in the ecosystem. So we got to find a way to protect ourselves and the public.
Yeah, Nicole. I mean, you obviously are very experienced in this space. What do you think of Jawad's suggestion here about working with the DAOs, and what are your thoughts on what Jawad just expressed?
I think definitely I can echo some of the ideas of Jawad. I think especially around the incentives, because honestly, I think that's one of the more efficient kind of drivers, you know, to kind of put people onto a path of, let's say, desirable behaviors that we want, right? So it's better than, of course, all the penalties and stuff. And even with blockchain, as I mentioned, so it's also a very powerful tool to come up with your own incentivization, how you can also decide how you want to distribute the rewards. And you can also, of course, have the community or a DAO to supervise that. And even for now, of course, with a lot of the tools out there with decentralized oracles, you don't actually even need a centralized party to kind of evaluate or verify any person's contribution to your project. Basically, all of the processes ideally can be automated and can be, of course, like, you know, supervised as a DAO once you have the right governance structure in place. And this can be, of course, applied to a lot of the use cases out there. I think we have a lot of the DAOs, like service DAO, investment DAO. As long as you have a shared interest and a constitution that makes sense to all of the parties, basically we can think about a leaderless kind of organization like that, and that can help drive people forward without, I think, by incentives. The thing with the bad actors, right? I mean, we actually also kind of want to use incentives as well for the community to be able to identify those actors at the same time. And as long as you have some stakes, or, you know, you have real stakes in the project, I believe that your main goal or your biggest interest is about growing that project instead of kind of, you know, bringing everything down to mush. So yeah, of course, I can relate to some of that. And I think even with our DAO for now, we share the same kind of mission of supporting the builders. And I believe that as long as you set the right kind of goal, the right say the right milestones and the right governance, you can actually gather a lot of the people out there who can share the same mandate with you.
Interesting. I'm really enjoying today's panel. All of you are incredibly eloquent. So a couple of other questions that sort of came up from your conversations. What then do you think is, so all of you are either familiar with Asia or have worked with Asia, or some of you are currently sort of traipsing about between Asia and Dubai. Well, what then do you think is the state of Web3 in Asia, or perhaps where you are in Dubai or elsewhere? But maybe I'll start with you, Rommel.
Oh yeah, sure. Actually, I just had a panel discussion with our. I was invited in our one of our government blockchain education to our community here in the Philippines. So, the state of the Web3 actually, especially here in the Philippines, is really huge. I think the last statistics we have is we have 4.3 or 2.3 million MetaMask user, and we are one of the top country that actually adopted having mass adoption when it comes to NFT and GameFi projects in Southeast Asia. So So in Southeast Asia alone, I was actually traveling this past few months. I met Nicole already personally. We've also been a panel discussion in this Metaverse Carnival way back before a few months ago. Um, I was surprised and luckily to see that personally this from Singapore to Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, the community is really strong, and I think it will grow tenfolds in the next 2-3 years in Southeast Asia,
Wow.
and we there's a lot of builders now also in this space. So it's really a good position for the other projects also to be really top the Southeast Asia market and also see the good ones. And the reason why we're also being showcasing our knowledge to the community is to really educate them how to really spot the bad actors. And being in IT, one of my goal by next year is to develop a tool for the community that will create like an AI analytics that will provide them if it's a good project or not, just to help them to analyze the tokenomics, the liquidity, the project. So I think coming up with the right tools also to give from the community is really also one of the best thing, and we need someone that really gonna step up on that, doing that for free, right? And I think by next year, if getting the right resources and funding that I have, probably will focus on that. We already have some ideas and draft some tools about it, and if you guys are also welcome to hear those tools that we're planning to develop by next year. It's really gonna be a big help to our community to bring back the trust, and they know the right project that they're gonna be invested with. But it's really hard to spot. Just to this a disclaimer, it's really hard to spot the recent issues that happened in a centralized exchange. We really don't know, right? It's regulated. It was being regulated by the U.S. government, and we are all surprised of what happened. So
Yeah.
that
What,
that
what
that kind of in this incident is really hard to track.
Yeah, no, it's true. Musheer, what about you? I mean, what is the state of Web3 now in Dubai? I mean, everyone, I know Jawad and Musheer, you're both based in Dubai, so I'd love to hear what both of you think. But Musheer, why don't you go first? Because we've been hearing so much about like, go to Dubai, go to Dubai. So I want to hear what you think from where you are.
Habibi, come to Dubai. I think that's
I
the way
shall.
to say it, right? Yeah. Well, look, I'm relatively new to Dubai, having spent the last 8 years in Hong Kong, largely, right? So from a Dubai perspective, I think there's a lot of activity happening in terms of across Web3, from looking at licensed regulated activity all the way to having a variety of different things in the metaverse and NFT, etc. Dubai is at the heart of the Middle East and also provides you this ideal hub location for bridging the East and the West, right? Geographically speaking, it's literally in the middle of the northern hemisphere, and that I think is a big advantage that Dubai has. You also have a lot of parties who are setting up their institutions across UAE and including in Dubai, right, from well-known family offices to a big name companies are also coming in here. So I think that's one key element. And then you look at the reach of Dubai. It's 2.5 hours away from India. It's within 3 hours of all of the Middle East, and you're talking about South Asia. And if you just take MENA and South Asia, it's a very young population as well, and a lot of people who are native Web3 players, if you want to call them that. That's a big advantage, and I'm very positive and bullish about the future of Web3 in Dubai. We've also seen positive moves from the regulators as well, and sorry, the government as well, in terms of looking at developing Web3 in a responsible way, but also welcoming in entrepreneurs who are looking to build in the space. Right? So that's on Dubai. Very quickly on Hong Kong as well. I think in line with what Rommel was talking about in terms of Philippines, Hong Kong has been pretty big in the NFT market in particular. But from a regulatory perspective, one of the earliest to kind of start looking at regulating the overall crypto market. Quite a few of the exchanges originated, had their bases in Hong Kong before spreading the rest of the world. So a very crypto native environment there, and significant capital as well. And it will be interesting to see the evolution. I think we are moving back towards also opening for retail investors in the coming months, as in
Yeah.
formalizing that process with regulatory safeguards, but as a ecosystem, very thriving. And I think
Huh.
once we see the full opening of Hong Kong, they will be a good place for, as a hub for East Asia overall for Web3.
So you don't think it definitely sounds like from you, Musheer, that hasn't really been much impacted by COVID because of the lockdowns and all that. Because I've been hearing that people don't want to go out anymore, but of course it's thriving. I mean, with Yatsu and Animoca brands, it's like they're launching like a $2 billion
Correct.
metaverse fund. So it kind of seems like such a different picture. It's like the picture on the street is like nothing's really happening, no one's really going out, but you're saying that the scene is actually thriving. Is that what's happening?
So we're talking about Web3, right? It's all
And Hong
virtual,
Kong,
digital, right? Yeah, and it's
exactly,
digital, a lot of it. So your
exactly.
in-person meetings are important, yes, but the whole point about Web3 is being able to drive life
Yeah.
online. But in terms of Hong Kong, a couple of clarifications. Hong Kong never had a shutdown, never shut down even for one day, right? So you had restrictions on movement, but you never had a lockdown in Hong Kong. So people could go out. There are still in place regulations around mask and everything else. But since a couple of months, they've kind of reformed the quarantine procedures for incoming passengers and tests. All of that have been eased up. But from a local community, as I mentioned, given Hong Kong's been in the state, a lot of people have been in the virtual assets world in Hong Kong for 10, 12 years. You do have a thriving community, and NFTs are actually being promoted by the government and other bodies. During the Hong Kong FinTech Week was an example where Vivian Tan released certain products based on that. So I do see that as a thriving possibility. And in terms of, you have two elements to a hub, one being what it offers on its own, and one as a bridge for other ecosystems.
Yeah.
I do believe once it's fully open, hopefully in the next year, it will then bring in all the external parties as well to further collaborate. But from a local ecosystem, it's fairly alive and thriving.
Wow, interesting. I have to go. I haven't been in Hong Kong for a while, so now I have to go to Hong Kong and Dubai.
Yeah,
So
take
what about you,
Emirates, fly into Hong Kong, Dubai, and then go
right?
to Hong Kong. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for real. And Jawad, I mean, you've lived all over, right? I mean, you've been in Dubai, Turkey, Australia, Norway, UK, and now you're settling in Dubai.
Yeah.
Again,
I've been there for like 16 years in Dubai as a hub to go to different places. And one thing they do here is they move really fast. When they decide to do something, they do
right.
it. So while most other countries are talking about doing something, they announce it and they do it. They said, all right, we're going to send someone to Mars and, go reach Mars. Had no idea how to do it. They just go ahead and do it. So, and they put all the force of government behind it as well. And they remove a lot of blockers in terms of doing that. So you've got a very, very vibrant community. And actually in COVID, this place shut down, but it opened up quite early. So 6 months before England, for example. And the main thing about COVID is it actually acted as an accelerator for crypto. It actually moved things along when it came to NFTs because people actually had more, I think it pushed the lockdown, the shutdown and COVID actually accelerated people at home doing more things online and more people gravitated towards these areas than we'd see in the normal world. So between that and between what they're doing in this country, I mean, so many projects are here. So like literally everyone comes through Dubai, and you're always normally you need to travel somewhere, but everyone inevitably is coming here at some point, and you always get to meet them.
Wow, sounds super exciting. I got to make a trip there then. So, other questions for you then, is and for all of you, what then do you think is the next evolution? How are we going to evolve from here? I think some of us touched on work a little bit, but what do you think is the next step for Web3, or maybe I'll phrase it again, or what do you think are some of the obstacles now that we need to, or pain points that we need to remove, eradicate in order to evolve further, and what are those next steps? What do you see happening? Does anyone want to take that on?
Maybe let me. Okay.
Go ahead, Nicole.
You want to go
Yeah,
first?
Nicole. Yeah,
No,
Nicole will
go
go
ahead.
first. Yeah.
Ladies first.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna be very brief. So I think coming back to the first question, what are some of the next evolution?
Yeah.
I think I'm still very bullish on DeFi or or decentralized finance. Basically, you have seen the I think the embedment or the the combination of DeFi and a lot of the existing verticals like game. We have Gamify, now we have SocialFi, we have Edify. Anything can go like kind of decentralized finance where we can embed some sort of I think decentralized as kind of DeFi based incentives to it. So I think basically this is still I think one of the way to move forward. So we have talked about play to earn, move to earn, a lot of the other areas like even like learn to earn right now, right, with finance for instance. So basically putting aside like the funny side of it, like people talk about like how people are just like going this for the money. I think pretty much if we look at it as from the business perspective, it's about designing the behaviors of your users, like in a more desirable way. And if it's about bringing incentives, if it's about keeping people incentivized, keeping people engaged with your products, then basically that's the ultimate goal of any product builder. Just to keep this. And blockchain and DeFi actually gives a more, I think, savory, sentiment or some more savory approach to it. So I think pretty much this is still something that I think it's not going to be just enticing for the Web3 business, but also for the mainstream business. Number two is I think with the obstacles. I think a lot of the applications right now, I think still the main problem is with the onboarding for users. And even with, I think Rommel is working on Gamify. So I think that pretty much with game, it might be one of the easier kind of vertical to onboard the users. But if we talk about, I think other tools like investments, swap, DeFi, etc., it's very hard for new users to tap in. And I think pretty much with the Web2 community out there, that's like the target community that we want to go for. It's not the native Web3 native community that we are looking at because it's so small. So if we want to, even like for game, if we want to onboard 1.5 million gamers out there, we still need a lot of, I think, works on this kind of onboarding, making sure that people would not have to experiment or experience a lot of friction when they move to Web3. Then pretty much, even with a very simple app, I think pretty much we can definitely onboard more users. So yeah, there's a lot of other side on the regulations and stuff, but I think I just want to pick out like, I think the most kind of pressing issue in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Rommel, what is the evolution and pain points, obstacles we need to remove?
I think I agree with what Nicole mentioned, right? That there's a lot of decentralized and finance involvement on the X to earn aspect in the Web3 evolution. And that will give the community the power and the ownership that they are really wanted, and not really tie up in one thing. And the fascinating actually when it comes to technology and building, what I'm really looking is this one metaverse world wherein all of these uh, NFTs that you bought into a different games. This is just an example, but seeing them in the one world, right? And if someone will create a project that actually can onboard all of this NFT that came from a project that wherein they cannot use it anymore, but they can use this in this one world. And I think that's a revolutionary for everyone, and that will give the power, the trust back to the community that this is what really NFT is all about. This is what really Web3 is all about. That they can really jump in, because as long as our NFT can just be played in our game, it really still looks centralized, right? That you cannot use it on other system. Yes, there's a power wherein you can buy and sell all of these. And the pain points now that we really need to resolve is to reduce all of this rug pull project, those bad actors. And we need help from the government. And I think this is the time for the government to really take us seriously. That what we do here is really revolutionary and really disruptive in the system. And they need we need help from them to really streamline this projects, this company that being just, it's kind of like a mushroom that really just showing left and right. I think we have 1,000 of project that and only 1%, 5% being
Viable.
left for the
Wow.
bull after the bear market, right? And then
Wow.
another new project coming in. It's kind of like in and out, right? It's just like they taking all this money from the community and then hit and run. So um, for me, I take it seriously, and if Philippine government will really require us to get all of this
Sure.
what do you call that, documents, permits, that what we need.
Yeah.
By the way, we also secured our SEC license here.
Mm.
So very now the government is slowly taking us seriously, and
Yeah.
hopefully that in the next coming years there will be more serious regulation that will be implemented in this space, because we really I really love the technology. That's
Right.
how I fall in love with the Web3. It's the
Right.
technology behind it.
So I
Right.
need to roll Rommel out when we do VC pitches. I need to roll Rommel out because that's effectively what we're building. So Rommel, our metaverse that we're building in Virtua, is a metaverse which all games developers can connect their projects to, and NFT projects can connect their projects to. We've already done this with
Oh,
Cardano and made an island for their community. We have multiple projects who are looking to have NFT utility, bringing them into the metaverse, using, and not only just, it's not just games. It's like give the community a place to
yeah.
be. So if you've got a project, we like Dead Pixels, a whole bunch of them. Like we took all the Cardano main projects. We
Mm-hmm.
spoke to the teams. They have their own villa styles, own crypto styles. They're gonna have brand hubs where they can come in and people can leaderboards of the game, social engagement. But then also your NFTs. We're encouraging a lot of people, companies to build on top of us, like an OS,
Mm.
and then take the NFT and take it into another game. Because
Yeah.
because if you look at things like Steam, people
Yeah.
take a game and they mod it. But
Yeah.
imagine if that became, you make a game, right? But then you can provide the royalties in it so that another project can change the avatars and even theme the game a bit, change some of
Yeah.
the gameplay, publish it as their own game, then you get royalties. So you have your game here, but flavors of your game are published by other NFT projects to give them utility, engage the community, and tether in the metaverse. So that's sort of where we are. I mean, like we've been building, we have about 250 people. We've been building for about 5 years.
Wow.
So
Oh
we've
wow.
got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of stuff around this, and we've just, like any, this is what I think the future is, because I think the future of Web3 needs a space first. We're all fragmented.
Mm.
We're all over the place. We need
Jawad,
a place where people can come where there's some trust.
let's
Mm.
let's connect after this meeting. I'll share you some of my insight on how you're gonna build that. I was actually an innovator, and I worked in IT industry for 17 years, and I was one of the pioneer of the big data. So
For sure.
so I really
But
love.
also,
Let's connect, and actually, I love what you're doing. I really wanted to also be part of that revolutionary that you're doing. It just I'll give you whatever
we
that
need
I
we need
Yeah.
we need DAOs, we need DAOs, we need GameFi projects, and we also need to go talk to Vara. So this is actually a good panel to be in.
Exactly. I
Oh,
was just gonna
nice,
say
nice.
we should all jump into another. We should all jump into
Yeah.
another panel of our own, which is not live.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not
yeah.
at, and not at 3 a.m. please, so that I can participate fully. But before we head on to our last question, this is such a fun panel. I'm learning so much. Musheer, what do you think? What is and the same question to you. What do you think is the evolution of Web3, and what are some of our pain points in getting to your vision?
Right. So I think we've had some very good inputs from Nicole, Rommel, and Jawad on different elements. I think three key factors that need to be built in or further evolved. Number one being investor education. Education has to be at the core of any new asset and a new technology. And when you look at Web3, it's a combination of new asset class with new technology, right? So and it's been at a hyper speed as compared to all other evolutions, which took quite some time to evolve. Whereas here you're seeing this evolution happening much sooner. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is interoperability, right? So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about when there's comparisons done between blockchain and the internet, there's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of false um, understanding that they are similar, right? But the
Mm.
fact is, you get onto the web and then you type an address and everywhere else the experience is the same, right? And then everything is done at the back end, right? Essentially the same as you using a phone and running things on your Apple phone or Android phone. So having that interoperability is very important. Whereas with blockchain, with multiple protocols, with multiple ways of interacting, the man on the street, man, woman on the street, the person on the street does not necessarily understand that, right? They just want the end product, and that is very
True.
important. Is simplification and interoperability, so that as Rommel was mentioning, if I have an avatar, an NFT avatar, say a Versace jacket, and I want
Yeah.
to, or a Gucci is an example they're using, in fact, right? And I want to go from sandbox to decentralized, I should be able to do
Yeah.
that without any issues, or for that matter, any random metaverse that somebody else has privately developed, right? So that's
Yeah.
going to be second important. The number three element in terms of evolution, and this is going to be important across Web3, we kind of narrowed it down a little bit to the metaverse and NFT world, but broadly speaking, when you look at Web3, I still believe we are at very early stages of Web3. We're probably mostly in 2.5 in reality, in terms of adoption and adaptation, as it were, is enterprise, right? So
Yeah.
when you're looking at the likes of Accenture, a bunch of the banks and others starting to use virtual reality and metaverses for onboarding, for example, Accenture is doing that for training their 150,000 staff, right? They've announced it. They're trying to build on that. So technology underpinning that is important, but you also have enterprise versions of different metaverses, if you can call it that, or virtual reality elements, where so when Microsoft is developing things, they do think a lot about how enterprise meetings can be done. So
Yeah.
there is a model which can be very beneficial in the sense that you could actually have a sustainable, profitable model because enterprises pay for things and they're used to doing that. Whereas your business model changes when it's a retail market. Quite often, businesses are running to chase and acquire customers and spend a lot,
Right.
and sustainability becomes a bit of an issue because you're relying on VC money in a downturn. That's even more challenging, right?
Right.
Even if you paid in crypto. So to
Yeah.
flip that around, if you look at enterprises, that's a good way where there's one market. It's a similar evolution to what happened in fintech. If you look between 2010 to 2017, 18, B2C fintechs raised the majority of the funding, whereas from 2019 onwards, B2B started picking up, and now B2B fintechs raise more money. And the world's largest fintech, in terms of Stripe or even Ant Financial for that matter, tend to be very heavily B2B. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that evolution is something that we need to pay attention to, and
Yeah.
that helps in terms of consolidation, helps in broader adoption. As more enterprises adopt it, that will go down to their users as well. Right?
Right.
So rather than so you have both ways of bridging it, but these would be the three main elements I think are important: education, interoperability, and enterprise development. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super quotable. Now we have like our last 7 minutes, like this panel has just flown by. I'm not even feeling like it's 4 a.m. for me at this point. So our last 7 minutes, we'll just go around the room. Each of you have about like 2 minutes, a minute and a half, 2 minutes to. Speaking of pitches, Jawad, I think you just gave me an idea. Like if you had to pitch to all of us here, what you folks are doing, give us a pitch and tell us, share with the audience, folks listening in. I mean, what is it that you're doing? Do your 2 minute investor pitch. Let us know what you're up to. We'll start with you, Rommel, since you obviously did a great pitch to Jawad, and he's like, I want to connect with you. So we'll start with you,
Okay.
Rommel. Start with your little pitch. What is it you're doing? Yeah.
Okay. So right now we are developing the probably the first ever GameFi industry that GameFi project that actually focus on sustainability, liquidity, and also the the product, the services. It's actually a AAA game that's the first person and a third person shooting game that really have an involved with a high intensity of fun collaborative game. And actually we will be, this is actually our third iteration. The project is really evolved from a stickman to really a AAA game. So we will be releasing our new updates, and I would like you to all invite to visit our website soon. We will be releasing the new upgraded assets, NFT assets that we have in the gameplay. The first ever GameFi that's actually have the esports element, wherein we
Awesome.
will all have fun, collaboration, and really strategic game.
Great pitch. Tell us your website so that folks can log on. What's your website? Where do we go?
Okay, our website right now is you can visit at www.arcusgame.com.
Very
So
cool.
it's also included on my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn, Rommel Carlos, search me. And also, I'm a business entrepreneur, actually, with a lot of businesses. So if you happen to visit here in the Philippines, please DM me. I have a van and
We will.
travel agency. I can help you
Done.
out.
I'm there. Oh my gosh, I'm very
So
busy. I go to Hong Kong, Dubai, and now Philippines. Awesome. Thank you,
yes,
Rommel.
please.
Okay, well, what about you, Musheer? Like, if you had to do a pitch, give us your pitch. Tell us how to find you, how to connect with you, Musheer.
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way to connect with me. I look to connect to anybody in the ecosystem broadly. Happy to have any discussions you're looking to understand about the markets and other things. And yeah, look, I think it's an evolving space, as I mentioned, a lot to grow. Sometimes we don't realize that the size of this market relative to the broader market is very minuscule. We talk about the $2 trillion fall of crypto over the last 6 to 9 months. Facebook, Microsoft, and Amazon alone collectively have lost $2.5 trillion in that same time, right? So just to give an example of three companies versus an ecosystem which has thousands of companies, we have a long way to go in this space. So these are, as they say, birthing pains and growing up pains that will continue in the ecosystem. But what is required is a broader understanding, not just of the self, but of the community. And in crypto, I think
Yeah.
community is at the heart of everything. But realization on where you stand, knowing your rights, knowing how everything is, no blind trust. I think that's a key element, and then looking to protect everybody who are involved in the ecosystem is going to be very vital going forward. Thank you, and
Well said.
thank you
Yeah.
for having me here, and lovely moderation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Musheer. Well, definitely very well said. And thank you. I take the compliment. Jawad, if you had to pitch, tell us your pitch, where to find you,
Okay.
how to connect with you.
Okay, that will be good practice. Okay, so virtual.com is our website. We're building a metaverse, which will be one of many, but our primary focus is on being the gaming metaverse, full stop. And the idea is that we're going to bring in games from Web3 and Web2, because ultimately the metaverse needs to be a persistent place which will have further engagement with communities. So basically, we're partnering with brands and games companies to build content on top of our metaverse, as well as creating reference games ourselves. We've got Stainless Games in the UK, one of the biggest game publishers in the world, developers in the world, making our first game. We have in-house games being produced, and we're also partnering with other games companies to build on top of our metaverse. We're also partnering with brands and celebrities. So we work with Kevin Hart to do screening room in our metaverse of his latest mini-series that he produced. We're on the Williams F1 cars. We're partnered with multiple movie studios because the idea is that Virtual is going to bring gaming and brands together to bring in users from Web 2 and Web 3. Web 2, persistent virtual world with DLCs. Web 3, metaverse with NFTs. But at the end of the day, the players will all come in if you can create one place
Right.
where everyone can mix. And we won't be able to do that just engaging the Web3 audience. We've got to bring the
Yep.
world in. And that's what the virtual metaverse is about. So you can connect with me in LinkedIn and just come to our website. And we do have our big land sale happening on Monday, which will introduce
Awesome.
the monsterverse. So imagine you've got a villa, but opposite a Jurassic Park sort of place with kaiju, Kong, Godzilla, Goliaths, monsters roaming around. So what we're doing is very different, and it'll be tethered by games. So we're building something different, and I'd encourage everyone to pop over and have a look. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
We're so excited. So our last word, I'll have a female panelist, Nicole. I want you to have the last word. Again, give us your pitch. Tell us how to connect with you, Nicole.
So yeah, I started my blockchain journey as a community builder. I have always been a community builder, and I will always be a community builder. So I started my blockchain journey back in 2017. So have been working with a lot of the projects in Southeast Asia and with APAC DAO. So we want to take it to another stage. For now, we've got 1,500 members from 600 projects in 10 countries in Southeast Asia. So we want to build a funnel for Web3 builders with Web3 with networking and meetups to support them with networking, talent matching, and also with decentralized launchpad. So we want to be like the gateway for you to go to Southeast Asia. So we are also connected with a lot of the projects here, Musheer and Rommel. And we're also looking forward to having you in our community as well, if you want to have our support. Please do find us APAC DAO. We are active on Twitter and Telegram and Twitter and LinkedIn as well. You can find us at APAC DAO. And I'm available as well on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to me. And yeah, thank you very much, Loretta, being very coherent, even if it sounds like early morning there in the US, and everyone else for contributing to this spectacular panel.
No, this really is a spectacular panel. So again, thank you all. I'm Loretta Chen. We're signing off from the Global Metaverse Carnival 2022. And the panel you're just listening to is the next evolution of Web3 and the Metaverse. And once again, big thank you to all our panelists, Jawad Ashraf from Virtua. We have Rommel Carlos from Arcus. We have Musheer Ahmed from FinStep Asia. And of course, we have Nicole Nguyen from APAC DAO. So thank you, everybody. And we'll definitely jump on our own private call sometime soon. See you all, folks.
Okay.
Let's
Thank
be connected.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.